Good afternoon. My name is Kevin Hageman, and there was two things I wanted to accomplish first, and the first thing was to not trip on the stairs. The second thing was not to get ranch dressing on my suit, and I failed. Already, this is going great. Secondly, half of the stuff Alma just told you is not true. I was always studious. I was not hiding in the bathroom, I was using the bathroom, okay? And I was asleep. I mean, I had just had some BM26 and Ben Kristen, I was asleep. Spinal Tap, it's all right. Whatever. Honestly, that stuff is true. That stuff is true. And most of you know, can you raise your hand if you're a graduate? I want to see who some of these graduates are, if you don't mind. Is anybody still going through treatment? You still are going through treatment? How about give these guys a round of applause for that? But there's somebody else that needs a round of applause, and I'll tell you this firsthand, are the parents and the friends and the supporters, because they go through this life with us to the end. So how about a round of applause for yourself? I always thought of myself as a warrior for what I've been through, but my family, my mother who's here with me today, and my sister, they're the leaders. They're the warlords. They've endured right here with me. And I'm gonna tell you a little bit about where I started. I was 14 years old. First off, if you came in and you read your pamphlet and you saw Kevin Hageman, I hope you didn't Google me. That would not have been good. No, I'm just kidding. But don't read anything. Yeah, I'm just kidding. I was 14 years old. I was at 4-H camp. Normal kid, never been sick a day in my life. Maybe had strep throat or something when I was 10. I went to 4-H camp and I started having swollen lymph nodes. Strep throat was probably the first diagnosis of thinking that, hey, probably got strep throat, antibiotics. Started getting short of breath when you're 14 years old and you're used to walking and playing golf and being athletic. Didn't make sense. So went to the doctor and got a chest x-ray, and the chest x-ray showed a mass. My doctor, I live in a very small town. I live in Crewe, Virginia. It's a very, very small town. He knew exactly what it was, and I'm thankful to this day that he did, because within the time frame that I got there and I got to have a biopsy done at Johnston Willis, it had only been about 2 weeks. So I was really very lucky to have caught it in time. I was diagnosed originally with lymphoma. I went to VCU Hospital for the first time and had my first bone marrow, which at 14 was the most horrifying experience I think I've ever had in my life. I'm sure some of you can attest to that. And I was diagnosed with ALL T-cell leukemia. At that time, it was 91. I mean, and still at 1991, I had an 80% cure rate. And I had to go through the 2-year protocol of chemo. How many of you have also had ALL, or any of you have had ALL leukemia? You did? Okay. I was very lucky to have that high percentage as a cure rate, and within 2 years, within the first 3 months, I went into remission, and I had that first induction phase where you're in the hospital, and I did very well, responded to treatment well, and after the 2 years was up, I was in remission. It was 1993, and I graduated high school in 94, and I sat exactly where you are today. Unfortunately, something that can happen later on in life. If you've had chemotherapy, can cause damage to other organs. Not saying it's going to happen to you, but I had a unique heart problem that runs in my family. So I took adriamycin, and after I turned 25 years old, I was pretty much living a normal life. I was working, I was doing underground directional drilling, doing fiber optic cable, just had a pretty normal life. And I started getting short of breath again, didn't know what was going on. Went to the hospital, got an x-ray, and my heart was enlarged. And they had no idea at first, what was going on. So I went through a lot of tests, and to find out that I had something called a dilated cardiomyopathy, which is basically an enlarged heart. Your ejection fraction, the blood flow that comes out of your heart, the way that it pumps out of the heart, was a very low percentage. Anywhere normal is about 50 to 60, and I was at 25. So from that point on, I was put on heart medication. I was taking heart medication, and it was told to me at that point in time that the only way to eventually get better from this condition is to get a heart transplant. So I was 31 years old. I remember at that point, I think I was in the hospital, in cardiac ICU, with a balloon pump, keeping my heart going. And it was August 17th of 2008 that I was supposed to get an artificial heart. And I didn't really want to get that because that's 2 surgeries, because then you have the artificial heart, you're still in the hospital, and then you would have to get a new heart eventually later, so that's 2 surgeries. But by the grace of God, I got lucky. That Sunday, I got a phone call. I was already in the hospital. The surgeon actually called me and said, "Hey, I have a heart, do you want it?" And I'm like, "Hell yeah." I want it. So that day, I went in for 5 hours, and I got a new heart. And since then, that was 2008, my life has changed. For the good and the bad. Because I can sit here and outline my story, kind of give you a gist of who I am, where I came from, but the most important thing are in the details. And in the details are the trials and tribulations, the struggles, and everything that comes with it. Being a younger person, 14 years old, image was everything. I remember after the first induction phase of chemo, I remember losing my hair for the first time. For a young man, it's probably not as devastating as it would be for a young lady. I can only imagine, especially, 91 was different. I feel like it was different. The kids today, a lot of people say that we had it easier. I don't think that's true. I think young people have it harder today. Social media, for one thing. Your image, who you are, is everything. Things like that can tear you apart. And I've been there, and I know that. But that was a pretty devastating thing to go through. And the chemotherapy, the treatments, they're worse than the disease. A lot of people don't realize that. They see the fight, they see the struggle, hey, you have a positive attitude, you're doing so good, but you know what? In the room by yourself, that pain you feel. All the time that it's there. And your parents feel it with you. They probably feel it more. But the good parts are the lasting relationships, the people you meet along the way, your doctors, your nurses, your teachers. Kathy sitting right here, she was my nurse in the hospital in 1991, 92. I've known her for years. I think she's been some of y'all's nurses at the clinic. I still know her today, still love her. Love you too, Elma, by the way, if I didn't say that. And oh, Elma has a book. Have you read Elma's book? Is it still available on Amazon? But the thing that I think about the most as you go on from this point in your life, as far as graduating and where you're headed in life, that you're at an advantage. You're at a disadvantage for the things that you had to endure, but you're also at an advantage because you have already been prepared for life. I feel. I didn't realize it at first. It took me years later to realize that everything that I went through my treatment, everything that I've had to endure, prepared me for real life. So all of you have already grown up faster than your peers. And I'm sure there's been times where you sat at home and people are doing stuff and you've had a treatment and you can't go. There's certain things you have to avoid, especially since COVID. You know, things like that. It's probably been the worst thing ever, but someday you'll come to look on it and you'll come back and you'll say to yourself, you know what, this really prepared me. Going through having a heart transplant, even at 31, going in, countless needle sticks, sitting there in that bed in the ICU, everything related back to my earlier life. Everything came to me that, hey, I've already been through this. I'm prepared for this. It prepared me for it. So it was kind of a blessing in disguise. Even though it created the problem, it was still a blessing in disguise. You know, it made me who I am. You know, I think sometimes when you go through something that's just so devastating, you know, it just makes no sense, does it? It makes no sense at all. You know, and there's no answer. It's like you have no choice but to face it, to endure it. But, you know, you can either become bitter or not. And I'm telling you, you have a choice. You have a choice to not be bitter. You have the choice to decide what you make sense of the sense. What you make sense of where you're at in life. You are the one that's in control. You know, I saw something. Anybody watch America's Got Talent? Just awful. I know it's weird. Anybody seen that? Anybody seen that? Years ago, it was a few years ago, there was this young lady, and she went by Nightmare. I don't know if you saw that. And she was currently going through treatment. She's been through treatment. She had everything going for her. She was a good singer. She had a lot of stuff online. She was diagnosed. I'm not sure exactly what type she had, but she didn't respond well to the treatment, and she got further along, and she actually went on the show to try to fulfill her dream to become a singer while she was currently under treatment. And I know that she had passed away during the show. And you know, you don't know how much of this is fake or not, but I looked at it online. But the point is that she gave this one quote, and I love it. It says, "You can't wait until life is hard anymore to decide to be happy." You know, and that means a lot to me because I feel like that the main thing that I've always tried to do is stay positive. Never give in to not chasing your dream. I had the worst time in school. I was not a student. I hated it. I hated school. I felt like I didn't have to do it. Hey, I got cancer. I don't need to do school. You know, who needs to do school? You know, and some of you might have felt that way. And after going out and working in the real world and then going through my heart problems, it kind of made me think, you know, what am I going to do with my life? Because it's not over. Your life is not over. It's just beginning. Even at 31, life was beginning again for me. So I went back to school. I called Elma, my savior, my second mom. She helped get me back into school. I went to surgical tech program, and I've been working as a surgical technologist at a hospital in Farmville, Virginia for the last 9 years. So even though you have setbacks, you might not know what you want to do right now. You might have it all planned out. You might think you might have it planned out. I thought I had it planned out. You know, things change. But you're already prepared for it because of what you've been through so far. You're stronger than you know. I guarantee it. No matter where you go from this point on, these relationships, friendships that you've made to this point, the people around you are important. You'll come back to them in life. They'll always be there for you. I promise you that. I can say that. I've known Elma since 1991 and still see her. And Aaron sitting over here, I've known since clinic. I've known him for years. You know, we go to the retreats and stuff together. So I mean, all of you around you, if you've made any friends at clinics, if you haven't, you know, I invite you to come to the Ask Yaks every summer. It's a nice retreat. We gamble, we get wasted. No, I'm just kidding. That's not true. It's not true. It's not true. But it's a good time. It's a good time. You know, if you can actually hold on to a dream for the future, you know, sometimes that's all we need to get through. You know, my dreams were different. You know, I thought I was going to be a professional golfer, but if you see my handicap now, you know that's never going to happen. You know, there's lots of things that I wanted in life and I didn't get them, and you're not going to get them, and that's just the reality of it. But you got to make the best of what you have. I mean, your disease or what you've been through is not a disability. You know, there's always something inside that you can take and put forward into the world that's positive. So never give up hope. And, you know, an example, last November, I had a heart attack. I have coronary artery disease because I had the transplant. That's just something that happens. It's been 15 years. Sometimes they last 20, 15. Some people make it 8, 10. It's undecided. But I never thought of it like that. I don't think of what can happen, so I just keep going. And after the heart attack, I was told that I would need another transplant. So I'm currently on transplant list as a category 4, which means I'm maintaining, I'm working. I'm not as severe, but it's a possibility. Last Monday, I just had surgery. I had a defibrillator pacemaker put in last Monday. But, you know, I'm not looking for sadness. I'm not looking for pity. I'm not looking for anything like that. You know, the only thing that I can think of is the future. I'm always looking to the future. And that's what I want you guys to do, is always look to your future as with a positive outlook. You know, you guys are awesome. You don't even know how awesome you are. If you've ever felt like you weren't, or you felt down, or you felt below, you felt that you weren't good enough, you already are because of what you've done, what you've been through. So never sit by yourself, never think to yourself that, hey, I can't do this. And you're gonna fail at some things, but that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that you fail at some things. It just matters. It's kind of something poetic in the way that you keep going, that you are someone that has been through and struggled and still persevered. And I want to leave you with one last thing. It's a quote, and this is a quote. It's by Conan O'Brien, of all people. But there are few things more liberating in this life than having your worst fear realized. Today I tell you that whether you fear it or not, disappointment will come. The beauty is that through disappointment, you can gain clarity. Even in disappointment, you can gain clarity. And with clarity comes conviction and true originality. Work hard, be kind, and amazing things will happen. And I believe this. And I believe you're already ready for it. So wherever you go from here, God bless you. I love you. friends love you. Your parents love you. Thank you very much.